Live from Jefferson City, it's the This Week in Missouri Politics Midweek Update with Scott Faughn.
Welcome into our second very busy post-election week midweek update. We are joined today by one of the absolute studs of the Missouri Republican Party in the House caucus, Representative Dane Deal. Welcome to This Week in Missouri Politics midweek update.
Scott, it's great to be on. It's even better to be on the farm and be on, so we can't beat that.
All right, where are you coming to us from? Is it the truck?
Yeah, I'm at the truck. It's cattle season. We're trying to get everything lined out for session. Being 60 days away, I'm setting up at one of our cattle working facilities, and I'm getting a little bit of a break, so we can't beat that.
Nice. So what kind of truck is that?
Well, I know you're on the F-150 tour against Kehoe. Against Kehoe's will and yours, it's sure a Chevy. It's a GM product.
Man, there went that chance for an appointment from the Kehoe administration down the tubes. You want to see something cool? So somebody sent me this hat. This guy in Salem sent me a Mike Kehoe Ford dealer hat, like all embroidered. I mean, it's nice. Things turn around there on the farm for you, and you get you an F-150. Maybe you can borrow this hat one day.
I would love that. I'd love that.
So let me start off. I have this thing in my bar, hanging this total stud on the copy of a magazine. I even got it autographed. Do you recognize that guy?
Man, that's a good looking lady and a kid. I can't say much for the guy, but I
think that's the guy that played Slaw on Goonies, right, Kelton?
He kind of looks.
No, wait a minute. That's Dane Deal. Never mind.
Exactly.
Sorry about that. All right, let's just get the big question out of the way first. We'll talk about what's session upcoming, but Sunday night, your colleague from the city of St. Louis, Justin Sparks, released a video saying he was going to run for speaker. I think it kind of surprised me because I thought last week y'all kind of reaffirmed your pick that you made a year ago for speaker. Let me just ask you the main question. Does his entry in the race make you question whether or not you're going to support John Patterson?
Absolutely not. And I think it goes far back even from last week. Everything. He was in a contentious race anyway, JP. I'm going to call him that if that's all right.
Yeah,
but he was in a contentious race and still put the caucus above everybody else, made sure we were all working hard, helped us staying side by side on the fundraising to make sure we came back. And I can't credit HRCC staff enough, but, with him at the lead, he made sure that our caucus looks the same, not 100%, but looks really, really good today as it did before the election. So I don't think, the folks that have been in Jeff City have seen his leadership last year, not only as floor leader, but getting us through this election cycle. I don't think he'll have any unwavering support.
Let me just ask you, I wouldn't ask you to out any of your fellow members, but I know you're on a bunch of group texts with people, and I'm sure a lot of folks over the last day and a half have talked a lot about this, the leadership challenge. Have you heard of anybody else confirm that they're going to be supporting a challenge to the speaker?
I have not. I haven't heard anything. Like you said, I think the phones have been alive, just as much as confused as anything. We go through the election, we get up there for leadership, we have a new class underneath us, new freshman class coming in, and then we have to deal with this. And I think, I don't know if it coincides with what's going on at the federal level, but it seems like I've gotten some calls in my office, Josh Hawley, to support somebody else because of another guy's stance. So I don't know if it coincides with all this or not, but it sure has been raising some questions from other fellow members.
Well, if I was John Patterson, I would want the cover boy from the Soybean Farmer magazine's endorsement right there. So I don't have a Steinem knowledge. I have a Yete of knowledge. I have one of these nobody cares, work harder, Gary Wheeler line soybean Yetes. I'd like to say Wheeler gave this to me, but I'm pretty sure he left it here once. And I just, lost and found. It's been there for 30 days, so here we are. Tell me about next session. I mean, your real enemy is the Senate. I saw Speaker elect Patterson say he was going to get rid of the slotting system. I think it comes back to, though, just as a matter of I know it feels good to pass a ton of bills, but I guess the question I would have is, when you have so many House bills, it really weakens your ability to negotiate with the Senate. Are you sure you need everybody passing 15 bills?
I think that's a great point, and I think as we meet for caucus, as we talk about priorities with new members, I think that we can really hone in and look. I heard that JP told us whenever we were back for leadership elections, that him, Mike Kehoe, Cindy O'Laughlin had already had a meeting. So I think that doing away with the slots, making sure members are empowered is important, but also all of us, really diving in together, seeing what issues and what bills, what legislation that we want to put forth as a caucus can maybe somewhat limit some of that. Now,
but it's all, you're powerful for a day. You're like the king of the dummies. I don't know that third reading a House bill, just because you do 15 of them and the Senate then can cherry pick out these 1,000 bills you've passed. It's kind of a mirage, right? You're letting somebody feel important, for 20 minutes on the House floor. But, I think you're making it harder to pass caucus priorities in the end of the day with the Senate. I just think it kneecaps your negotiating abilities. And you don't have to have a slot system. You could just choose to not pass that many bills because that's what you want to do.
Right. I agree. And I think that, I think through JP's diligence, having Alex at floor leader, I think that they're going to have the caucus, I know that there's a lot of negotiations go on, but I think that we'll really work. They're really going to work hard to make sure that they put our caucus a priority and help while also helping the legislators carry legislation, but maybe peeling back on some of the amount of sheer numbers out there.
Yeah. Tell folks about Alex Riley. Folks have heard the John Patterson story. Alex Riley is the new incoming House Majority Floor Leader. Tell folks about him.
Man, he came up and spent some time in a combine with me last fall. And I always really enjoy that kind of, fall time frame. You better come to me. And there's been many of them that have made time and effort to do that. But, I think just his wit, intelligence, I think that he's very refined on the floor, has a little bit, let's say, different of a path of priorities maybe than what JP has. But whenever we merge those together and work with the rest of the caucus, I think we're going to do a lot of good things. Coming out of Greene County, that's a great addition to, I guess we call it Southwest, South Central Missouri. He's for sure facing some different issues in a lot of other parts across the state too. So,
well, they have a Buc-ee's, so they're doing something right,
Yep.
He does seem, he seems like a bright guy. He's a very intelligent dude.
And I've seen day in, day out, people go to him for help on legislation or really understanding it. I think that law background is just, it really, really works well, and it's going to help on in the floor leader position where, we look at already the Gen Laws chair and how well of a job he did there. But I think that law aspect of him and his intelligence is really, really going to help us from the caucus standpoint.
So what do you think next year? I hear directly from the Attorney General and the governor that they want to do a crime package to address crime. And I tell you, Mike Kehoe's created more jobs than I would know what to do with. I do think there's some point in Butler County, if there's free cheese in Butler County, it's because St. Louis is doing well. I do think it does matter for the state for St. Louis to do well. It does matter for the economic growth of the state. And I think Mike Kehoe may have a point. I don't know how you grow economically with the amount of crime in St. Louis.
I agree. And, I already enjoy from those meetings, from what he campaigned on, Mike Kehoe, of continuing it. He emphasized, I don't know if it was on St. Louis media last week, that, hey, we're gonna make some changes and we're gonna go to work right off the bat on these issues. So I think everyone's committed, including much of the St. Louis delegation. That look, they're closer. They and maybe that's a little bit partisan, but they're closer. They really understand, live it day in, day out. So we look to them for a little guidance also. But I think we're committed to working hard on crime legislation, and having also Lane Roberts out of South as the new assistant floor leader out of Southwest Missouri. We're going to have a good coalition there to get some things done from the House standpoint.
By the same token, I mean, I see what you're saying, but I mean, if the state tried to take over the Butler, Missouri Police Department, I mean, folks would get the guns out, right? Be like, yeah, come on down. I do.
Yeah.
It is to me a little tough because I do see the point of a legislator in St. Louis where the folks that represent the city are like, just leave us alone, and the rest of the state's like, not gonna happen. I do think it's got to be as a legislator a little tough when you have. I mean, if Lakeisha Bosley came to Butler and tried to tell you what to do, that wouldn't go over.
Yeah, absolutely. And
It just seems like it makes total sense, but when you really drill down, I can see why a legislator it'd be something you'd have to really think through, because your Republicans are about less government, local control. Now you're going against your typical ideological grain, but it does make intellectual sense.
Yeah, and I think we look at what did it go back to being local control 10 years ago, and I don't think circumstances have gotten any better. And I'm making a trip to St. Louis next week just because 40% of our economy comes out of that area, and it sure affects things even here on the farm. So we have to fix some of those things, continue to allow, we want businesses coming there. We think it's great proximity. We think it, has some real advantages, but 10 years on an experiment hadn't gotten any better, and I would say arguably worse. We have to be ready to make some changes.
I think that is the one thing that I've heard Senator May make very impassioned defenses of leaving it local control. But the one thing I do think even she would have a hard time refuting is I don't think things have gotten better. Now, whether they've gotten worse, I've heard different people argue different sides of, but I don't think anybody said things have gotten better.
Right. And that's from the consensus and talking with folks and businesses and just listening to conversations. I think that's the general consensus. So
tell me, Amendment 3 passes. There was a very spirited effort led by now Governor-elect Kehoe, and to kind of bring together all of the different groups on the pro-life side. I guess I don't know if Right to Life joined in on that, but a lot of groups joined together. Then it passes, but candidly, quite narrowly. What do you do? I mean, I've heard folks say, listen to the will of the voters, which makes sense to me. But a lot of your caucus is like, well, I always find it interesting when a legislator can say, well, everybody knew all my positions when I was running and they voted for me, but they didn't understand that ballot measure. But they certainly understood their state rep vote. It does feel like, I guess I'll just ask you, I assume there'll be legislation filed and moved through the House to change, box in, roll back Amendment 3. Am I wrong?
No, I think you're absolutely right, and we've already seen calls, on social media, people calling for that. I just, and I think part of that amendment, I believe, talking to the other side of the aisle, part of that amendment might call for some of that. I do believe, and this is kind of going, it's something that we all have to be unified on, from House, Senate, upper leadership, the executive branch. It's something, whatever direction we decide to go and try, we all need to be unified for the purpose of how, like what we were up against to start. And like you said, how narrowly it did ultimately pass, but how narrowly it passed. We need to be a unified front on what changes we would like to see made and what legislation and how it would influence that amendment.
Any concern about some of your members that you barely drug across the finish line this time? If you go back and poke the bear of abortion, you're making their reelection chances harder.
Scott, before this election, I would have said absolutely, but partisan-wise, from the Democrat side, what more could they have wanted on a ballot? I mean, all the way from the top down to this amendment. So I think that's always a reality, but man, the turnout we had and how hard we worked to get them there with all the things working against us, and credit to Hannah, Casey, JP, they had us the whole time. Just, hey, we got to work harder. We got to keep our head down. And I think that worked, but I don't know if it's as much a concern for me as it was 2 or 3 weeks ago with just looking at how Missouri turned out in November.
That makes sense. Let me ask you one about HRCC. I watched the video. I don't know if you watched Representative Sparks' video. He complained about the fundraising of HRCC, and I get that, right? Raising money's hard. It's hard for a freshman especially. I understand. I understand the challenges and the frustrations that come from that. But boy, I mean, whatever Patterson did with HRCC, damn, I mean, the scoreboard is hard to argue with.
Well, that's what, we need to get out there. That goes back to really being a team. I mean, when we raise money for HRCC, it's to bring those Bill Allen, it's to bring Phil Oler-King, it's to bring, some of our St.
Ben
Louis,
Keithley,
Ben Keithley, even Melanie performed excellent. Get across the finish line, and it's something no one likes to do.
That damn Brad Christ ran. I think Harris won his district by 5 points, and he won it by 9. That does not happen without a pile of money.
And I think there's a few other things in there. Candidate quality, work ethic, but yeah, absolutely. He and I had more phone calls and texts the 2 weeks leading up to it, like, how's Brad doing? With Brad and I are extremely close. How's Brad doing? I said, if everything he has done, messaging on point, and still helping our caucus on top of that. I want to thank him for that. He's in those conversations, raising money for HRCC, but he was very well rewarded from putting everything together and the way he ran a race. So but there was a lot of people nervous about his race and many others.
Should have been.
Sure got calls on that one.
I mean, when the Democrat nominee for president wins a district by 5 points, you should be nervous. That you're going to have to do something to get them to. I mean, it's interesting to get your mind in the mind of that voter that went Harris and then found their way to Brad Christ. They probably just had to meet him and get 50 pieces of mail from y'all.
Yep.
I had to complain about HRCC when you had the best night you ever had.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. What we were looking at, best case, worst case scenario.
Yeah.
I mean,
you beat your best case.
No better of a day than we had walking into Jefferson City on Wednesday. And I think that was, widespread across the state, not only in the House, but man, what a day to walk back in with the caucus we had.
Let me ask you about an issue that I know you know about. There was some discussions in the legislative session quietly about some of the problems at the Department of Insurance. There was a piece of legislation passed. It tried to box in the department. I mean, essentially, you just have an absolute left-wing department. The director doesn't show up for work. The number 2 person, John Rehagen, might be the most liberal person in state government. Mike Kehoe looked folks in the eye and promised them he would end DEI in the state of Missouri. It's time to clean house at the Department of Insurance, or is it time to just accept that we're going to do Marxism here no matter how many Republicans we elect?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Between, the circumstances that has faced that office and then the investigation that I'll call you did here, it's time to make change. And what better time for change than a new administration coming in? And one
man's investigation is another man's game of Clue.
That's right. That's right. I tuned in a lot to that investigation and really enjoyed it.
Well, I think it comes down to it's so funny. Everybody in the Trim Building blames this thing called the NAIC that they're a member of. Right now, you got old boy swinging a hammer this morning in Bates County. It's a little chilly outside. Now, he's probably worked up a sweat by 11:20 and may have removed his Carhartt jacket, but he's got a sweater on. Dane, I don't know. Do you think that guy on Friday gets his paycheck and says, damn it, we don't have enough DEI. I'll go work an extra half hour to pay more taxes so that we can have more DEI. I don't know if that guy exists in Bates County. Does he?
I promise you can't find him. I promise you won't find him.
So will you be the one that says we should, if the Senate allows a new director to be confirmed without demanding John Rehagen's resignation, obviously the Senate has no intention of following President Trump and Mike Kehoe's directive ending DEI. Will the House eliminate the funding for this NAIC? Why should that guy have to
think
work
that,
extra to pay for wokeism?
I agree. I think that's something that, representing the district that I do, and knowing where my people are, that's something that we should absolutely get rid of. And it's darn sure some conversations we need to have.
So tell me next year, you have, I think, probably everybody's going to sit down here in 2 weeks to eat Thanksgiving dinner. And ours is going to be wonderful because Casey's an excellent cook. I'd like to get that in right now.
I love that.
But if we as we sit right here, we're all going to enjoy Thanksgiving dinner, and in large part it's because of glyphosate, which is the chemical in Roundup. A lot's been made by the liberals about how bad it is. I guess my point is, without you filed legislation, I mean, essentially they're going to quit selling it in America, and we'll be totally beholden on China for our food supply. You filed some legislation to put some floors in on some of these lawsuits. Is that legislation that's going to come back this year, and how optimistic are you about its passage?
Yeah, I think you're right. Just the sustainable, consistent food source where I'm at, and a lot of it's the feed side right behind me going into animals. And, Missouri always faces challenges, whether growing season, weed pressure wise. We have to continue to make sure that maintain those tools are in the toolbox. So we've been working hard. I would say, from my standpoint, with our caucus, with colleagues, we've been working hard to make sure that message continues to get spread. And look,
some of your urban colleagues, is it they just don't understand, or they just don't give a damn about rural Missouri?
I think it's the understanding part. We have to make sure
You're a
and
nice
express,
guy.
What we're doing, the amount of how we do it, and this chemical and how it's used is absolutely safe. It's been proven. 50 years of data is a pretty darn large amount of time in the grand scheme of things for a pesticide. So I think that we just have to do a better job of conveying the truths about it, and not relying so much on social media or one alternative source that questions our livelihood.
Do you get frustrated sometimes? I feel like we in rural Missouri let the urban Republicans, the very liberal urban Republicans, dictate things too much. They throw fits, and they hold their breath, and they whine. And the St. Charlesization of the Republican Party, I think, is almost a lethal shot at rural Missouri. Is it not time? The strategies they've done have worked. The holding up everything for their bills, the standing in the corner and holding their breath until they turn red. Do you not think it's time for rural Missouri to say, well, if leadership's going to allow these sort of shenanigans and pouting and screaming to work, don't the folks in Bates County deserve for you to come just hold the place hostage too for rural Missouri's interests?
I'd like to say so, Scott, but I ultimately, want to work with those folks. Hey, if they get their piece of the pie, let's get.
But I don't think they give a damn about working with you. And I'm talking about Republicans in your own caucus. I don't think they give a damn about you. Or me.
That's a challenge I'm willing to have. That's a challenge that I embrace. And look, we are on the short side of things. A lot of times in rural Missouri, and we look at where populations are growing and aren't growing. But that's a challenge, and why I'm there, it's to fight and work hard.
Look at that cameo. What's that dog's name?
Well, you'd really enjoy this, being partial to Anheuser-Busch. His name's Weiser. That's short for Budweiser.
If I have another kid, I think that just jumped to the top of my name list. All right, we got to ask you. I don't know if you knew this, but now Kelton, I don't know if it's still illegal, but he has an illegal sports book. This Saturday we have Mizzou. What are they down, Kelton?
I think they're the underdog by 11 in this.
Okay, so Mizzou minus 11, plus 11 at South Carolina. What do you think?
I think after the week Martin had last week, I think it was better. I'll take Mizzou. That spread. I mean, I love that spread, so I'll for sure take Mizzou on that. I hope Pine continues to progress. It looked like we had a great What a game! First of all, last
what a
Saturday,
game! That was
I'll
great.
take Mizzou for sure.
Okay, next, do you take Mizzou outright, or are you taking the points? Kelton's a homer and a kiss ass, so he just totally went Mizzou to win. I'm taking the points. Where are you at?
So he he took Mizzou in the money line. I'll take the points. I'll take the points.
I'm with you. I'm going to take the points there. Representative Danedale, thank you so much for joining us. Tell Weiser we said hello.
That's the interruption we had. Life is good. I'm glad for technology across Missouri. And Scott, thanks for letting me get caught back up with you all.
You bet. Good to see you, buddy. We'll
bye from Truman. See you soon.
That was Truman situated. You want to talk about a good guy? Danedale is just an absolute good dude. Rural Missouri common sense. Kelton, I just think rural Missouri is the supermajority of the supermajority. But, boy, they act like they are just the most insignificant folks that just get pushed around constantly by the urban liberal Republicans. I don't know when they finally get tired of it.
I think they're just too darn nice.
Too nice. We're too nice in rural Missouri, no doubt. The urban liberal Republicans walk all over the rural conservatives every time. Too nice. We have a governor now from Jerome, Missouri, though, right?
I think he can get some stuff done.
Well, you know, here we go. There'll be a big push again, and I think he's right. You do have to take care of St. Louis crime, but boy, you ought to take care of St. Clair farm communities too. And this glyphosate bill, I understand there's emotional arguments, but let's be real. If you're going to enjoy to our city friends, I hope you enjoy Thanksgiving dinner. I really do. I hope it's good. I hope you incorporate some beef in that Thanksgiving dinner. But and I hope it's great. I hope it's a wonderful, wonderful time of reflection and giving thanks. But maybe, just maybe, Kelton, do you think our city friends could consider, just possibly, instead of wanting to lecture us about how we provided it, just say thanks for lunch?
That might be too big of an ask.
I think that's an impossible ask. Yes, I agree with you. But we're going to come back here tomorrow, 11 o'clock. David Barklage, the dean of the Missouri Republican Party. Sunday, we're going to talk to, if you ever look up here in the corner, that is this terrific, I don't even know what it is. Caleb Jones gave that to me. It's a painting, per se, of Garrett Hawkins, the president of rural Missouri, the Missouri Farm Bureau president, with his motto, think big, do good. We are going to have the man from the painting. He's going to come to life. Garrett Hawkins will be our guest here tomorrow, Sunday on This Week in Missouri Politics. Tomorrow, David Barklage, the dean of the Missouri Republican Party. Can you imagine? We've got to come back and break his balls. Kelton, he was on here saying, terrible night for Republicans. It's going to be so bad. It's going to be awful. It wasn't awful. It was pretty damn great.
If he can get his phone to work to tell us that, then
I'll
be very interested.
I mean, Barklage is a political consultant. He is not a tech guy, and you can tell. I mean, he does frosted tips and political consulting, not tech. Although I would think most people that have their hair frosted would be good at tech, right?
It seems like an unfitting stereotype at this point.
Man, I'll never forget. David Barklage had helped take over the Missouri Senate, and he was this like scary figure that nobody. He was actually working inside state government for a minute with Peter Kinder, and I mean he shows up one day. I mean he had the governor's ball there, kind of getting in the middle of stuff. He shows up with his hair like a normal color that a human being would have hair, and the tips are orange. It was the funniest thing because it's this. Everybody was kind of Barklage is always this mysterious dude, always in the middle of everything. But he was in the Capitol for about 6 weeks, and he'd been going through and he'd been deleting these no-show jobs. And the Democrats had it for a long time, and it showed. And he's this like mysterious figure, this controversy. Then he comes back with his haircut that just is hilarious. Like you couldn't take it seriously. And we had a lot of fun with that. He's been a good friend for a very long time. We'll chat with him tomorrow. Garrett Hawkins on Sunday. David Barklage tomorrow at 11 here on This Week.